Well, folks, as you can see, we have Aristo back, and he's not only back, he's talking about growing our minds back. The title is actually Growing Your Mind Back. And Aristo, explain where you've been and talk about growing our minds back. I mean, I'd like to hear
Our
that.
minds. We're all in the same boat here. All of us need to grow our minds back. And this is, you asked me what title, I don't know, because it's been a while since I've been on here. I'm kind of getting my sailor's legs again. And my computer just stopped working, dead on arrival, they said in the shop. I had to mail it to the manufacturer until they pronounced that, yeah, okay, this is hopeless. We're just going to give you a new computer. So I went and got another computer, but it took weeks and weeks until this whole procedure and me not knowing what the outcome would be. And I really, really need my computer. So finally, I did get it back and set it up. It's better than before. If you hear a little hum in the background, that's the fan. So it's kind of a little louder than before, but as triggered. I'm back on track. We'll be doing these videos regularly if I can help it, at least once a week. And let's get to the topic, because what I wanted to talk about is the theme of all the videos. It's like everybody who is on this channel, has a certain theme, a certain style, a certain area of interest. My area of interest isn't really all of the political stuff that's going on. I mean, it is personally, but it's not, I talk about it, but it might as well be anybody. But what I'd like to talk about is something that a lot of people don't consider practical, but which I do consider practical, and very much worth listening. So when I am online, when I am searching online, this topic, as far as the alternative stuff is concerned, is far more interesting to me than who's bending the knee or who's tweeting what and all of that stuff. And what special group has pronounced something for more free money that nobody's going to get. Or if they do get, it's going to be only apparently free because there's always a high price connected to it. So my area of interest is, how do we stay sane in all of this? I'm not going to say that, look, we're going through a transformation and it's going to hurt a little bit, grin and bear it, we'll be okay in the end. I'm not going to say the world is going to be destroyed de facto, that's what's happening, you can't avoid it. I'm not going to say the world is insane or not insane. The fact that you can look in the mirror and kind of sense that the world is insane, or look at your own heart and sense that, you are going insane or feel insane, means that you are not insane. The people who are more or less insane are the ones who are completely considering themselves immune from it. Insanity is, exactly, it's the classical thing, if you know you're crazy, you're probably not. Because crazy is a sense of aberration from your, shall we say, natural way. If you're aware that you're not acting or being or feeling naturally or perceiving naturally, then you are probably not. And that means that your discernment is working. Even if somebody is trying to fool you into being insane, that is an aberration in and of itself. You are being distorted. So, but it's the judgment you place upon that state, upon that so-called insanity, that makes you or breaks you. You can lose your mind, or you can keep your mind, or you can regrow your mind. If you think you lost it, you never really lose it. It just gets repressed. It's like with Alzheimer's. I've just read recently that they say Alzheimer's does not eliminate memories. It doesn't destroy your memory capacity. It represses it. So if for whatever reason, you follow some protocol, some therapy, for whatever reason that you are one of those who is healed from Alzheimer's or recovers or has a remission or whatever they call it, you will regain your memories. Your brain isn't destroyed. It's just inhibited. So our mind...
Yeah, sometimes it's just a matter of getting off the prescription drugs they're giving you.
Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's a detox. Sometimes it's parasites. Sometimes, I mean, there's all kinds of things that the conventional interpretations of health don't really affirm. And we know this in everything, you know. There's a whole bunch of stuff now about vaccines. Even the mainstream, not the mainstream, but the shall we say, controlled alternative media, you know, because it's not just controlled mainstream anymore. Everything is controlled. And you don't have to be paranoid to actually affirm that. It's okay. I mean, you say, look, how was the world like before the internet? How was the world like before everybody had a smartphone? You know, it went on business as usual. It was just as insane as it is today, only nobody was talking about it.
Well, nobody knew about it. The internet, the spying device, has opened up people to information that they didn't really have before. It's given access to things that were inaccessible.
Or you can say it opened them up to noise they didn't really have before. So information and noise, and a lot of information is noise. So, and it depends on what the meaning of it is. But look at something conventional in United States society. It's the 60s, the late 60s, where there were a lot of protests, there was a lot of conscious awareness. Even in the early 60s and mid 50s, when you think it was conservative, the intelligentsia, much of the intelligentsia, not the official ones, but the younger ones, the revolutionary beatniks, so to speak, you know, there were groups of people who were pretty radical, even right after World War II, when everything seemed completely conservative, you know, in the majority sense. So the thing is that people were recognizing, I mean, you have people talking about the world being insane for centuries, millennia, and ancient writings, you hear the same thing. So it's nothing new. There is really nothing all that new under the sun. We're just now, our blinders have been taken off. So we're looking at the world as it appears to be more starkly. What I'm saying is that we are looking at the world without our filters of, you know, localized information, where we can only see myopically, where we can only see 5 feet in front of us. Well, right now, the problem is not myopia. It's not nearsightedness, where all we can see is our little town, our little neighborhood, our little family, or whatever. Right now, our problem is more presbyopia, as they call it in Greek, or you know, farsightedness, where we're like, you know, people who need reading glasses. They can't read anything that's close to them because, you know, all they see is what's really, really far away. So information is mostly what's far away. It's not, doesn't really, I mean, come on, you know, oh, the world is ending, oh, Nibiru is coming. You know, you see anything? Does it affect you? Is the war that you're reading about in the other country affecting you specifically? I'm speaking about people who are from North America and Europe, you know, because these are the, you know, this is the group that I refer to the most because I'm here and you're there. You know, it's the group that represents where we are coming from. I cannot speak of people in Africa or Asia unless it's through third parties that, you know, I talk to from there. It's their job or their position to speak for themselves and convey what's going on in their thing. And as they are conveying it, there's going to be a cross current of myopic distortion or, you know, farsightedness distortion, because we're trying to see what's going on far away. And it always comes to us maybe very sharp and high definition, but it might not be a real image. It might be completely doctored, toxified, you know, changed. So there's a lot of crap that comes to us from far away, from all these other countries, how they're doing this, how they're torturing that, how there's so much war and this and that. And then you have things that are like somewhere in the middle, where you're in the United States, for example, was always a country of information. Always a country of the news, of propaganda, of TV, of Hollywood. You know, there was always media going on, newspapers and magazines, and even more than Europe in many ways. So a large boiling pot that seemed to be more impartial because there was so much of it. You know, you would think competing newspapers would tell the truth to make more sales, or at least that's what they said, until you realize that there's one faction that has bought them all up. You know, so
that's the way it is, actually. I mean, there's only all the major media is owned by like about 5 people.
Exactly. So you think about that. You think about the alternative media. So if you have a little guy who's a girl or whatever who's in their house, speaking from some like us here, and they're talking like this, and you say, okay, that's a small thing, and then you think about a giant alternative media outlet, and there are
like Alex Jones,
and you wonder, well, let's not name, but that's okay, But the thing is, you wonder, okay, if I was the establishment, I would have contacted these people and brought them into the fold, or I would have sabotaged them. They would not be surviving right now without some form of compromise. In fact, even if they are completely legit, shall we say, and not compromised in their own morality, they are compromised in terms of what they put out and how they put it out, so they can fit into the greater picture of whoever is,
of whatever the agenda is.
Of whatever the agenda is, yes. So even if they're telling you, but then there's so many things that you can notice on these sites that they emphasize. They emphasize a divide and conquer mentality much more now than they used to. They used to say, it was almost like this. If you're a researcher, you will have a control group. So, Mr. Jones used to say, maybe we're the control group. Maybe they want to see how many alternative types will pop out of the woodwork if we just give them an outlet to view or listen to, So the little bait, So yes, they will allow a small company producing a healthy product, shall we say, and then they'll buy it out and imitate the product. Of course, they're going to let them have the healthy product for a while to get the clientele, so everybody can come and say, oh, yes, we want that. That's a great thing. Look, the world is getting better. And then they buy it out, and all of a sudden they're feeding you poison. By the time you realize it, half of the customers are dead. So, that's how they're messing with your reality. Now, the thing is, what does this have to do with growing back your mind? Well, the mind is whatever fucking makes the decisions about all of these things. This is what perceives. This is, I'm not a mentalist. I don't believe in, I believe in the body. I believe the mind is an expression of the body. I don't believe that the body is an expression of the mind like many people do. For somebody to hijack your reality and tell you that it's just the mind, and the mind in your heart or in your being, well, it's just an abstraction. It's just information. No, everything is just information. We manipulate information, so you're fucked. We're manipulating you. You're being raped. Ha ha ha. These are gaslighting attempts. These are passive aggressive, very professional, very scientific. This is mind rape in a very, very, roundabout way. So it's bullying. I mean, there's a lot of manipulation going on, and that's okay. Because why am I saying that's okay? No, it's not okay, but it's not the end of the world. So you can regrow your mind back. You can regrow it stronger than before. It's been ripped from the roots, and it's been replaced by something else. Well, why am I not somebody else then? Because you are not your mind. That's why, if you look at esoteric understanding, they will say you are not your mind. You are not this mind thing. Just as, you are not any single fingertips. You are the whole package. You cannot separate the package into parts and wonder which one you are. That's the problem. You are not the visible body, because there's more to the visible body, what we call the physical body, but actually it's all physical. It's all, it may not be molecular per se, but energy is physical. It's a tangible thing. Consciousness is an effect that is intertwined with the physical. Separating it is an abstraction. Our analytical mind is a conceptualizer. It deals with information. It is a virtual dynamic. It is a virtual way of perception. It is not a concrete way of perception. So our holistic intuitive mind is also a virtual way of perception. Only when they weave together, like not even like two pieces of a puzzle, but like two ingredients of something that is only active when they come together. Two inert ingredients come together, they create some healing salve, or they create a poison or whatever, but it doesn't work unless they're together. It's not there unless they're together. So the mind does have components, but you cannot call it an active, enlivened, embodied, living thing, shall we say, or expression of yourself until all its elements are working together in cohesion. So when I say growing back your mind, I mean growing back the function, of this mind, what we call it. And it is an expression of body, but body is simply your manifest being. All of these things are abstract. We are being toxified. We're being bombarded with electromagnetic radiation. We're being bombarded with nasty information. You're hopeless. You're wondering, why does some God allow this kind of thing? But still, all of this is bullying. Everything that goes through your head or your heart in these days of so-called insanity is not really you being insane, is a natural response to the stress of being bullied, of being attacked, of being threatened. It's natural. You see, why am I emphasizing this? Because you don't beat yourself up when you know it's natural. But to sideline it, to kind of say, well, it's just the transformation. No, it's not just the transformation. This is not. You're trying to, when people say that, those who do, they confuse the bigger picture with what they're experiencing directly. They're not one and the same thing. They should be. You see, you would be so-called enlightened if you can combine the two. If you can combine your farsightedness and you can combine it with your nearsightedness, and both of them sharp and interchangeable, then you couldn't be fooled. Because there's things in your immediate environment that complement what's going on in the world. And there's things in the world that complement what's going on in your environment. I'm talking about your perception. In other words, the world says everything is fucked, everybody's insane, but you have friends, you have a family, you have this, you have that, you have, even if you don't, you go out and there's nature, there's still nature. You still hear the birds tweeting, you're still seeing, trees are still there. You smell a flower. So well, whatever it is in the world, this environment is okay. Or maybe your world is falling apart, but you look at the bigger picture and there's still ideology. There's still something of hope. Something else exists beyond you. There's still people who aspire, even there's others who've lost hope. So the bigger picture and the little picture, if you can discern what is meaningful in both of them and bond them together, they will help you grow your mind back. But it takes commitment. You see, only your commitment can do this. This is a relationship between you, the world, your ideals, the mind, the body, all of these things. This is a relationship of all elements, perceived elements of your being and the world. And this relationship, when it's coherent, when it's loving, you might say, even when you suffer, you can still be loving. You can still say, okay, I'm suffering, you're suffering, this is suffering, and I may not be expressively loving, I may not be tender and nice, but I'm real.
Well, I've seen and actually heard first-person testimonies of how when the hurricanes were affecting Texas, I heard that, but I've also heard from people how the hurricanes affected here in Florida and how people were coming together to help each other and communicating with neighbors that they didn't know. So there's always a positive side of even negative events.
Exactly. And even that can be twisted because somebody says, well, then we should have more negative events to bring people together. We should have an apocalypse to teach us all a lesson, show us the right way. But again, when we come to certain conclusions that are against our sense of meaning, because there is something that people of the New Age variety do say, and that is, for example, that it's all going to work out for the best. Many people say that. But we don't know if it is or it isn't. But there's meaning to it. There's a purpose to it. I mean, the universe is operating like this for a reason. Let me address the divinity issue, for example. You have a certain belief system. It's monotheistic, God is one. There is a God. There is a creator who actually is responsible for everything in this belief system. And this so-called, just because it's created it means it's responsible for it.
That's how I am.
That's how you are. So the creator is an image, is a big rock. So, sometimes the religious people think, okay, I'm just a little God, I'm in the image and likeness of the creator. But in reality, what they're thinking is, subconsciously, is that the creator is in the image and likeness of me. So I wouldn't be doing all this crap, would I? Maybe you would. You know, you've never been if you're in that position. I mean, you have people, absolute power corrupts, absolutely. Oh no, but this is God. This is the great benevolent being. Well, let's take a certain myth, you know, of a culture that perceives a singular divinity or cause of creation. However, this singular divinity has many expressions. In Christianity, for example, coming from the Persian Zoroastrian dynamic, you have a single God. Judaism took it and interpreted it this way: a single God, many angels. Okay, these angels are all perfect, but they have no free will, which means they are really appendages of this single God, like tentacles. Each one does a different thing. They're all immortal, so angels cannot really revolt. You can't have angels disobeying this singular divinity. It's like your arm disobeying. However, other gods can do so. You know, that's the thing in paganism, that gods often fight each other. And sometimes you have gods, and it's not like a good and evil. It's one god has a certain agenda, the other one has a conflicting one. Because they're trying to explain, why is the world so insane? To them, having a single god trying to, you know, actually being schizophrenic is kind of crazy, because then, you know, there could never be a reconciliation. Instead, if you have many gods and they're, you know, in conflict, you might have a reconciliation. But from a mystical standpoint, there's no difference, really. Whether you have a single God that is having a problem and creation reflects that problem, or if that, and then why should this God be perfect? Then there would be no evolution. How could a divinity that has no clue about, you know, imperfection create an evolving universe? It has to start from somewhere and has to keep evolving. It can only create a perfect universe. So, you know, God has to be both perfect and imperfect has to be a functional, real thing. It can't be virtual imperfection or imagined imperfection. It has to be in action. So it occurs through creation, and it occurs through conflicts within these principles, principalities, whatever. So religions all define it differently, but the reality is you have the mythic reality, shall we say. So let me describe one of these myths. There was once the god Brahma. He's considered the creator aspect. Basically, this is the God that comes into manifestation and puts together all the principles and energies and whatever, and consciousness, and matter comes up, and, you know, whatever, all these things form together. So this God worked in the four directions of this level of density, shall we say. My interpretation, my wording, of course. Then all of a sudden, he saw his daughter, who's also a creator being, but this daughter is the divine feminine, but another aspect, a younger aspect, something that needed to find an equally youthful male aspect or yang aspect in order to co-create with it at her level of being, but she was up in a lofty area. So he looked at the sky, and because he had four heads, and he grew a fifth head, and said, okay, because the four heads were north, south, east, and west. And the fifth head was looking up and saying, oh, wow, I really like this little, you know, frisky little creatrix character, even though he had a wife, or maybe two wives, I think. And but he didn't care, so he went out to rape his own daughter and basically, in the myth, create a material-like dynamic in the celestial realm to raise the level of density into the more rarefied atmosphere, which would have been a complete distortion and messed everything up. He didn't care. He was driven by this lust, by this passion of uncontrolled creation, essentially. Because if you have a certain aspect of divinity or causality, shall we say, and it's driven without any check, without any boundary, without any you know, counterpoint to its own point, then it's going to go run amok. And this is what this did. So the creator, the greater being, basically came up and said, okay, you know, the aspect that was the counterpoint, that's not destruction, but transformation. It says, okay, it's time to dissolve this. You can't do this. This is going to mess up everything. It says, I don't care. You know, who are you to stop me? And I'm not stopping. I don't care. You're nobody. You know, get out of my way. So, you know, so he kept doing this. And this other aspect started getting angry. You know, a counter passion arose. And so it manifested a side of itself that was dark, not malevolent, but very, very passionate. So it came out as this black, you know, dark cloud of an entity called the terrifying aspect of Shiva, who basically used his little finger, grew this long fingernail from his little finger and chopped the fifth head off. So the fifth head couldn't go up and create in this rarefied atmosphere. What does that mean? Well, after this happened, this aspect of Shiva had to go and do penance. It had to repent for what it did, even though it saved the universe. This has nothing to do with repentance. It has nothing to do with punishment. It has nothing to do with actual molesting somebody's sister or daughter or whatever. It has to do with balance and imbalance in creation. There are imbalances in creation, okay? And these imbalances, you know, in order to correct them, shall we say, creation needs to go through fevers. And these fevers need to redistribute things. And that is painful to beings who are designed to survive, designed to live, designed for a status quo. They can only take so much change. But then to increase their capacity to take change, to be able to make it meaningful, they have to evolve. So this interplay, this dance, this painful insanity at the same time is being corrected as we go along. We're part of that correction. But the correction isn't some teacher's office where we just check something off. It's a process. We are myopic, nearsighted, and we are presbyopic. We are farsighted. But which one is, depending upon which one is dominant, you know, we're losing half the picture. We are analytic, we're synthetic, depending on which one is dominant, you know. So there is a need for balance in all of this. My point is that all of these videos that I've had were focused on helping people to face the mind control, to face the gaslighting, to face the stress, to be able to say that, look, don't give up. There is meaning, despite on what nobody bullies somebody who doesn't matter. Okay, you matter. You're being bullied because you matter. Otherwise, nobody would give a shit, and nothing would happen. Nothing would change. So those of you who are living completely effortless lives, meaning whatever, you know, oh, I don't know, there's nothing going on. I don't see anything. The world's just, well, everybody's just making up shit. You know, well, maybe you just don't matter to these forces, you know, or maybe you painted yourself into a nice little safe corner for now. But the people that this video and you talk to are the ones who believe something needs to be done. But this something has to occur from within. You cannot do anything unless you can stand up and take your first step. And that is where my videos with you are addressed. To stand up and sturdy, take a martial arts stance so nobody can knock you down. Not just stand up and stay up. You can be knocked down easily by the slightest swing. And take your first step. And then learn to walk. And learn to walk securely. And each step is going to be hard, but know that as you take the second and third step, then you will realize that you are much stronger than you were. Okay, so there's no reason to speak more on this topic. You can regrow your mind back. You can regrow your discernment. You can discover it. You can discover everything. You can realize that in your way, from your position, you have been right all along. Even though we seem to be arguing about all these things, everybody from the meaningful kernel of their position, away from the distortions and the misunderstandings and the messed up, repressed angst that we want to really express, you know, we're all right. You know, we're all right too. So that's what I wanted to say today, and thank you once again for hearing this ramble.
Thank you, Aristo.